time you saw me, I was opening my sleepy eyes and just spitting a little bit to show you that I was alive. No, this thing doesn't talk. That was me, in case you were wondering. In this video, we're going to show you what it took to get this thing back on the road and the challenges we overcame. So come along on the journey.
In anticipation of trying to get this thing going, I did a little cleanup in here. I put a battery in here that does not belong in here. And the reason you don't want to put tall batteries in here is because if you sit in the seat, the springs will make contact with the positive and negative terminals and start maybe a fire or something like that. Let's work on the brakes. I believe that maybe this might be what we're looking for. Let's see what that looks like. I can't imagine that it has many other fluids in it. Here's the reservoir right here. I will verify that on the internet, and then I will put some brake fluid in there and see if I can get some pedal. I have had a lot of stuff going my way today. With the brakes, I basically opened all the bleeders on all the wheels, but couldn't get any pumping to happen. So what I ended up doing was loosening the fittings on the master cylinder, and I could just hear the air leaking out of that thing, so it was airlocked. Once I did that, then I was able to start to get some fluid flowing to the different wheels. So then the last thing I need to do is get this exhaust system on. And I had a bunch of broken studs on this. Well, they weren't broken. What happened was I think that they were cut off because they couldn't get them out, and that actually was probably not a bad thing to do. This is an example of what I've got, just a partial stud. So what I'm going to do is clean up all the threads. I went and got new studs, and I need gaskets. I need these 4 gaskets, one on each cylinder, and then I need the gasket that goes on here. I will just put a block off plate on both sides, which I can cut something out and make it up, but I still need a gasket. So I think we're ready to get the exhaust on as soon as those gaskets come in the next couple of days. The throttle works. It's running off of its fuel in the fuel tank. I did put some fuel in there to dilute the stuff that was in there that might have been a little bit older. So the throttle cable had a little bit of a loop on the end of it, which I straightened, and it broke off. Then I ended up coming up really short on the throttle cable, but then I figured out that it must have been broken at some point, because it looks like they just put some metal. There was some metal coming out of the lever that hooked the throttle cable, because it was shorter. So it really needs another throttle cable. But you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna use a little baling wire, put a bend in that, and then hook it up and at least get this thing where it'll have some throttle. So I'm trying to figure out why I don't have voltage to the car, and so I look under the starter and I see that I've got I'm just following the voltage from the battery. So that's the battery cable there, and then there's another one that piggybacks off of it that comes up here, and it comes through the firewall and goes up here, and it goes to this terminal right here, and then it gets picked up by this wire, and it kind of comes back around. And I initially suspected this connection because it was all wrapped up in tape. Continued to follow it. I felt another bump in the wire and started peeling it back, and I found this right here, which is no connection at all. So, well, I thought it was just one wire, but when I dug, I found 2 wires, and I'm not really sure where this blue one comes from. Oh, actually, there it is right there. So it's also one of those charging ones. But I also found, ooh, shoot, we know that's hot. Anyway, found 2 wires here, so I'm gonna go ahead and strip those back and do some quick connects on those. So I looked up the lights, and so the oil, it's got oil pressure, but generator and cooling isn't working. And the first thing I find is this is not hooked up to this.
Okay, that's fixed. Let's take a look. Yeah. Exhaust is on, let's drive it. Maiden Voyage on the Tex-Mex Bug. We've made some improvements and have done some digging since we got it going. Obviously the seats have been, I've taken the covers off and they do need to be recovered. I'm hesitant to order parts and start doing stuff because the longer I own something, the more money I spend on it, it seems like. I did locate a battery for it with the recessed terminals. I installed that. I'm still going to cover that positive terminal because I don't want to risk somebody having a fire. That cup is for covering the exhaust when it rains, but I'll need to find something a little bit better because when you've got a pipe like that, it's gonna take water down it and it's gonna collect inside those, inside the pipes, and then it'll steam out when you first fire it up. And I did cap off these. Oh, that's hot. And so now we'd have no exhaust leaks anywhere. We are still leaking a little bit from this valve cover, so I'm going to get another bail for it. I believe that bail is too easy to pop on and off. The bail is the metal part that holds it on, and they get weak over time. The other side's not leaking at all. This side's dripping a little bit, even though it has a brand new gasket. I was having trouble shifting with it, and the engine was hanging down a little bit. And what happened was that when they took off the rear bumper that goes on the back here, it's got a couple of bolts that go through the engine and into the frame, and those were not in there. And I did find them in the car. I didn't have all the brackets I needed to mount that bumper back on here, and so I just went ahead and put those bolts in. I still need to install the shroud that goes over the engine, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't really feel like I've got way too many projects and I don't feel like working on this anymore. I drove it around the yard, and it was low on power, and the reason was that it didn't have full throttle. So it does need that throttle cable we talked about. Yeah, so I think it'll be a fun project for someone. I just don't think it's going to be me at this point. Interesting that I finished it in 2024, so that makes it exactly 60 years old, which happens to be my age. Today's my birthday, and so it's kind of fun to finish it. It's a birth year bug. I finished it on my birthday, and I finished it as far as I'm going. Finished it in quotes, and so I'll just kind of maybe wrap it up, get the throttle working a little bit better, and then maybe see if I can find someone who wants to take it over. That's all I got on the 64 bug. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and It was fun. Oh, it's okay. You can live in here if you want.